Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good morning, everyone. The Honorable Lecturer Mrs. Castiana S.M. Hum and all my beloved friends. Before we begin, let me introduce ourselves. We are from Group 5, and our group is consisted of Nurul Islamiyah, Nida Aditia, and myself, Zyrlia Rahma Aaliya. Today, we are going to do a presentation about international relations. Britain's historical position as a colonial, economic, and political power was in relative decline by the early decades of the 20th century. The effect of global economic competition, two world wars, the emergence of Cold War politics dominated by the USA and the former Soviet Union, and domestic economic and social problems forced Britain to recognize its reduced international status. Some of the previous overseas links continue in altered forms, while other relationships are new. There are four topics that we are going to discuss on this presentation. The first one is foreign and defense policy. The second one is empire and commonwealth. The third one is the European Union. And the last one is Irish Republic and Northern Ireland. The first topic is going to be presented by Nida Aditia.
Foreign and defense policy. Britain's foreign and defense policy still reflect its traditional position as a major trading nation, the world's fourth largest economy and the global finance center. The USA has been Britain's closest ally in recent years. It is often considered, rightly or wrongly, that a special relation exists between the two, and a majority of Americans regard Britain as a close ally of the USA. The USA sees Britain partly as a bridge to Europe, while Britain wants to maintain the Atlantic connection in its own beginning with EU countries. Britain's major defense alliance in with the North Atlantic Treaty Organization NATO. All the major British political parties are in favor of retaining the NATO link, and according to opinion polls, the public would not support any party which tried to take Britain out of the alliance. The British government has progressively cut its defense by reducing the number of armed force personnel, ships, aircraft, and equipment. Governments have commit themselves to upgrading nuclear weapons, while critics want cheaper alternatives or the cancellation of the nuclear system. Britain can operate militarily outside the NATO and European area, although this capacity is becoming increasingly expensive and limited.
Next is empire and commonwealth. The British Empire began with the attempted internal domination of the British Irish Isles by the English, together with military conquest in Europe, followed by trading and colonization in other countries. British imperial rule and possessions embraced a quarter of the world's population by the 19th century. The British Empire and Commonwealth formed in the late 19th and early 20th century when Canada, New Zealand, and South Africa became self-governing dominions and achieved independence. British government granted independence to India and Pakistan in in 1950s and 1960s and many islands of the West Indies. The name changed into British Commonwealth, then developed into the Commonwealth of Nations as most of the remaining colonies became independent. The present Commonwealth is a voluntary association of some 54 independent states, including Britain. The Commonwealth is sometimes described as a family of nations, with their occasional wars, tensions, and quarrels. The British monarch is a focal point of identification and has an important unifying and symbolic function, which has often kept the Commonwealth together in times of crisis and conflict. EU entry was seen as ending the relationship between Britain and the Commonwealth, but economic cooperation and trading between the two has continued. The Labour government feels that the Commonwealth is a success and is committed to raising its profile.
The European Union. The ideal of a united Europe, strong in economic and political institutions, became increasingly attractive to the European statesmen after the Second World War. In 1939 until 1945, the foundation for a more integrated Europe are established in 1957 when six signed the Treaty of Rome and formed the European Economic Community (EEC). Britain did not join, but instead helped to create the European Free Trade Association (EFTA) in 1959. Britain distanced itself from closer European connection in the 1950s and saw its future in the trading pattern of the Commonwealth and assumed special relationship with the USA. Attempts by Britain to join the EEC were vetoed by the French president Charles de Gaulle. He was critical of Britain's relationship with the USA, particularly on nuclear weapon policies. De Gaulle resigned from the French president in 1969, and new British negotiations on membership began in 1970 under the pro-European Conservative Prime Minister Edward Heath. Britain, together with Denmark and the Irish Republic, formally joined the EEC on January 1973, having left EFTA in 1970. Some politicians had always hoped that increased economic integration would lead to political initiatives and a more integrated Europe. The Maastricht Treaty 1992 was a step in this process, as a result of which the European Community became the European Union. The Court of Justice comprises judges from the member states. It settled disputes concerning EU law and is a very influential factor because it also determines the application of EU law in the domestic system of the member states. British support for the EU peaked in the 1980s but has been eroded. But at 2001, Mori poll found that barely 28% of British respondents felt that EU membership was a good thing. Public support for the EU has therefore to be lukewarm and indifferent. The turnout for British EU Parliament affection in the laws in Europe, and there is ignorance about the EU, its benefits, and its institutions. Next, Irish Republic and Northern Ireland. During the 20th century, as Britain has detached itself from the Empire and entered the EU, Its relation with Northern Ireland and the British Republic was problematic. Ireland was first controlled by England in the 12th century. Since then, there have been continuous rebellion by the native Irish against English colonial, political, and military rule. The situation, the situation worsened in the 16th century when Catholic Ireland refused to accept the Protestant Reformation. 100 years later, Oliver Cromwell crushed rebellion in Ireland and continued the earlier plantation policy by which English and Scottish settlers were given land and right over the native Irish.
In 1690, the Protestant William III, or William of Orange, crushed one Catholic uprising at the Battle of the Boyne and secured Protestant dominance in Northern Ireland. Ireland was then mainly an agricultural country, dependent upon its farming produce. In the middle of the 19th century caused death and emigration, with the result that the population was reduced by a half by 1901. After the Second World War, Northern Ireland developed agriculturally and industrially. From 1972, responsibility for Northern Ireland rests with the British government in London after the Northern Ireland Parliament was dissolved.
The Downing Street Declaration of 1993 by the Irish and British government was a further attempt to halt the violence and bring all parties to the conference table to discuss the future of the whole country. The peace agreement was in danger of collapse, but a partial IRA decommissioning in 2001 allowed the assembly to continue. The Protestant unions want to remain part of the United Kingdom. You oppose union with the Republic of Ireland. Insist upon the decommissioning of all IRA weapons and argue that any future solution for Northern Ireland must lie in consent by a majority of the people living there. A more report in August 20 and 2001 of people in mainland Britain found that 26% of respondents believe that Northern Ireland should remain in the UK and 41% believe the province should join the Irish Republic.
And that's the end of our presentation. Thank you for your attention. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.